Hello, everyone. This is Reverend Dr. Roger Paul. Doctor. Yes, I am a Reverend. Um, I'm coming to you from the universe tonight. You'll notice my. So anyway, we're going to continue with our study on paper 12. We're on 813. We're going to take a slight little skip over a little bit and see something else that me and Mike were talking about earlier I guess it was last week. So let's say a little prayer and then we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Pray that you'll open our hearts and minds that we might remember some of this, that we might benefit you and share this with friends and relatives and show how much you love the universe, show how much you love us. And thank you for this beautiful revelations you've provided for us, that we might learn about you and learn about the celestial intelligence. We thank you and we give you the praise in your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
Somebody got a radio on?
It's really, there's a lot of back. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of background noise somewhere.
It's
stopped. No, it's not. It's a radio or something. Really?
Huh? No,
we're getting like TV sound or background noise from something.
I don't know where it's coming from. I'm the only one down here, and I've got my headphones on.
I don't have anything on, Roger. I mean,
I don't have
anybody else?
Don't even work with sound music.
Must be the room next.
Can I make a suggestion? Maybe if we mute ourselves and see what happens there.
Say that again, Mike. I didn't hear you.
Maybe if we muted ourselves, other than you speaking, and then we chime in, that maybe that might.
Yeah. If everybody will mute until you're ready to speak or read, that'd be great.
I think it's coming from Letch.
Yeah, I just left the room next to me. The TV was on, so that should take.
That took care of it. All right, that was it. Okay, I'm going to take you all on a little trip tonight before we get started.
I'm going to take you all on a little trip tonight.
Now I'm getting feedback from myself. Okay, so here we go. We're at paper 12, section 8, paragraph 13. Okay, I'm going to take y'all to paper 130, on the way to Rome. Okay, you see that pop up? And this is when Jesus was talking to a Mithriatic priest about mortality, about time and eternity. And this guy was a Persian that had been educated in Alexandria, and he wanted to learn from Jesus. And what I wanted to share with y'all is something me and Mike talked about earlier, late in the last week. And that was in paragraph 7.6. All right. And this is Jesus talking when he was explaining to this man the things that we've been studying in the last couple of weeks. Okay. And basically, this is what it said. And I'm still getting feedback. Let's, can you mute for me until you get ready to speak?
Sure. There are 7 different conceptions.
No. Just mute your mic, Lex, is what I asked. Could you mute your mic for me?
Oh, muted?
Yeah. Till you get ready to speak. Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback from everybody tonight for some reason.
Mute, but yeah, okay.
There you got it. Okay, that took care of it. All right. So I'm going to read this paragraph and kind of let y'all see the comparisons to what we were talking about last week. Okay. There are 7 different conceptions of space as it is conditioned by time. Space is measured by time, not time by space. The confusion of the scientist grows out of the failure to recognize the reality of space. Space is not merely an intellectual concept of the variation in relatedness of universe objects. Space is not empty. The only thing man knows which can even partially transcend space is mind. Now, remember, this is Jesus talking, right? Mind can function independently of the concept of the space relatedness of material objects. Space is relatively and comparatively finite to all beings of creature status. The near consciousness approaches the awareness of 7 cosmic dimensions. The more does the concept potential space approach ultimacy. That's what we've been talking about. But the space potential is truly ultimate only on the absolute level. It must be apparent that universe reality has an expanding and always relative meaning on the ascending and perfecting levels of the cosmos. Ultimately, surviving mortals achieve identity in a 7-dimensional universe. He says it in 2 different ways. He says it in the awareness of 7 cosmic dimensions. First, you see that? And then he says it in the identity in the 7-dimensional universe. You see that? This is what we've been talking about, okay? And what he's talking about is the 7-dimensional levels that we progress through the finite up to the 6th spiritual level. You see what I'm saying? This is the reference I was talking about to Mike last week when we were talking about it. And me and Mike talked about this on the phone this week, and I wanted to share that with y'all so y'all can look it up and experience the same thing. The point is this: Jesus taught many of these concepts in his life to different individuals, not always the apostles. This was a Mithriatic priest that he's talking to at Carthage. Okay, so he taught a lot of these concepts all the way through his life at different times. And it's interesting to find out that if we study the Revelation, even on the parts where he's not with the apostles, even in his earlier life, we can find these little jewels of information that shared with us. Isn't that interesting?
Hey, Roger, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Revelatories also speak about a runner in those days. There were runners. Can you describe to me what's a runner?
A runner was someone, they didn't have communication like they had now. They had no cell phones. They had no way to get information. So the runner would take information like at a meeting or, at the churches or wherever these things went on. And then he would take that information and go from town to town, and they would relay this information from town to town. These runners would. And that's how they found out what was going on in Jesus during Jesus' life, because David Zebedee had a whole host of runners that he was in charge of, that they would keep track of what Jesus was doing and saying.
Did they run by foot, or was it more like caravan or camels?
It was by foot.
It was by foot. Okay.
Like a relay
thanks.
race.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's start from 8:13. Okay. Did y'all have any questions about that stuff on 130 before I move on? Okay. Ed, would you take 8:13 for us, please?
Certainly. The goal of existence of all personalities is spirit. Material manifestations are relative, and the cosmic mind intervenes between these universal opposites. The bestowal of mind and the manifestation of spirit are the work of the associate persons of deity, the infinite spirit and the eternal Son. Total deity reality is not mind, but spirit mind. Mind, spirit, unified by personality. Nevertheless, the absolutes are both the spirit and the thing converge, in the person of the universal Father.
Okay, a lot in this paragraph. Okay, it says here to start out there with that our goal, our ultimate goal, is to become spirit personality, right?
Mhm.
So what it's telling us is the material manifestations of our life are only relative to what's going on inside the cosmic mind, and the cosmic mind intervenes in between the opposite of material and spirit. Okay, so it's the intervening aspect of mind, the cosmic mind, that is, right? So we know that our goal is to become spirit personalities, right? So we have to go from a material viewpoint to a spirit viewpoint. And it says on down here and later in the paragraph, spirit, mind, and this mind spirit unification. And Mike mentioned this last week at the end of our thing. It's really what we eventually come to is not just a mind of just spirit, but it's a combination of our spirit mind and the mind that we currently have growing into that spirit mind. Okay. Then it goes on to tell us that the bestowal of this mind is the work of who? The deities of the infinite spirit, eternal Son, the infinite spirit for the mind, and the eternal Son for the spirit part, right? All right. And then it goes on to tell us that the total deity reality is a mind spirit or mind spirit mind, but both of these converge in the person of the universal Father. And how does it do that? It does that in our own personality, right? Because the universal Father is the personality circuit. Okay.
Hey, Roger, does that have anything to do with the Morancha body?
Yes, it
Okay.
has to do with the Morancha too. That's the in between area between spirit and finite, right? So that's included in that also. All right, Diane, would you take the next one before we move on?
On Paradise, the three energies, physical, mindal, and spiritual, are coordinate. In the evolutionary cosmos, energy matter is dominant, except in personality, where spirit, through the mediation of mind, is striving for the mastery. Spirit is the fundamental reality of the personality experience of all creatures because God is spirit. Spirit is unchanging, and therefore, in all personality relations, it transcends both mind and matter, which are experiential variables of progressive attainment.
Isn't it interesting that even though all three, the energies, the physical, the mindal, and the spiritual, right, all are interrelated. That's why they're coordinate, right? And it's interesting that in our universe right now is a finite universe, it's the energy matter that's dominant, right? Throughout our life, it's the energy matter, everything we do. And it says this except in personality, because personality is what? Is part spiritual. That's where spirit takes over, right? So when we go from energy matter or our mind in the physical sense, and we start to interject our personality, it becomes what? Spiritual. All right. And through that mediation of the mind, it's striving for the mastery of spiritual life, right? So the spiritual is the fundamental reality of all personal experiences. Okay, because God is spirit. So if you think about what the thought adjuster does is it tries to make every aspect of our life, and the reason they call it adjuster is because it adjusts our mental and physical reality of life and tries to create a spiritual personality, right? A spiritual counterpart for that. Okay. So that's what the function of the adjuster is until we get to fusion, right? And it's on to tell us that the spirit is unchanging. Therefore, in all personality relations, that includes your relationship with God, that includes your relationship with the creator sons, that includes your relationship with every being on this planet, right? All your personality relationships, right? And those, it says, it transcends both mind and matter, and they are experiential variables of the progressive attempt. What does that mean? That means it adds to your experience, and that experience adds to your progression up to the spiritual level. Okay.
Hey, Roger, I had a question.
Well, wait a minute. Let me finish my thought here. When you go to bed at night and your adjuster is working on spiritualizing your life, it includes those personality relationships in which you have with all people, right? That includes family, your friends, people you casually meet, all of them. All right.
Mhm.
All right. Go ahead, Tim. What's your question?
So when somebody asks you how can you define spirit, it's usually in defined as the adjuster, right? That's what you're
Yes.
referencing. The spirit is
Yeah.
always the adjuster. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If we think of anything spiritual, it's really the adjuster.
Okay,
You think
thanks.
about it. All right. Okay, let's see. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Can you
glad
guys
you
hear me
could,
okay?
yeah, I'm glad you could join us. He had some minute problems earlier. Yeah,
Well, I made a hotspot on my phone and I
that's
fired
working.
up my iPad. So,
Okay.
okay, where are we? 8:15 or 16?
15.
Okay.
15.
In cosmic evolution, matter becomes a philosophic shadow cast by mind in the presence of spirit, luminosity, of divine enlightenment. But this does not invalidate the reality of matter energy. Mind, matter, and spirit are equally real, but they are not of equal value to personality in the attainment of consciousness is a progressive spiritual experience.
Okay, so mind, matter, energy, and spirit are all real. Okay. Even though they say that the material is the shadowy substance of reality, which is spiritual. That's where we're going, right? But that does not in any way discount the reality that matter and our finite world is real, right? That's what we're living in. We're living in a finite world, okay? But it's interesting here they use spirit luminosity of divine enlightenment. Okay. It's that spirit luminosity that takes that mind presence and drags it into the spiritual world. Okay. That pulls us into that spiritual world. Doesn't invalidate energy, matter and energy, or mind and matter. They're all real, but it's that spirit enlightenment that allows your personality to attain divinity, to attain God, right? We do that through a consciousness of that divinity over experience over time. That is our spiritual experience. All right. Go on to the next one. Bill, would you do the next one, please?
Sure. The brighter the shining of the spiritualized personality, the Father in the universe, the fragment of potential spirit personality in the individual creature, the greater the shadow cast by the intervening mind upon its material investment. In time, man's body is just as real as mind or spirit, but in death, both mind, identity, and spirit survive while the body does not. A cosmic reality can be non-existent in personality experience. And so your Greek figure of speech, the material as the shadow of the more real spirit substance, does have a philosophic significance.
Okay, so that old saying that this is just a shadowy example of what's really real, which is spirit, right? And that does have some meaning. All right.
Is that the Greek? Is that Greek figure of speech? What are they referring to there?
That's a Greek. I think that came originally from Plato.
Yes, Plato's image of the caves.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You know that this world is just a shadow of the real existence, of spirit. Okay, so that does have some meaning, and I think in one of the papers that we were just talking about minutes ago, I think Jesus comments on that at some point in one of those papers. I don't remember exactly where it was, but he does make a comment on Plato's concept of that.
It's interesting that this analogy of the light and the shadow, the brighter the shining, in other words, the brighter the light, the bigger the shadow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really a good. That's a I don't know what's the right word, but that as the light moves, so does the shadow.
So does the shadow. Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting too, Mike, that the light they're talking about, in my opinion, is the light from the Father. In other words, the more you allow the spiritual luminosity of the Father to come through you, the brighter the shining of your personality through that. And so other people can see what is real compared to what is just a shadow.
Yeah.
Mike, in future reference, it's from Plato's Republic, book 1 or 2.
Okay.
If you want to take a look.
Yeah, I'll write that down.
Yeah.
I had a question, Roger.
Interesting read. Yeah, Tim.
So when they say mind, when somebody's asking you, well, what is mind, and you say identity, can you also say that identity is in reference to personality?
I don't think so, because let me tell you why. Your personality is part of the growth of the soul, okay? And that's from the Father. Your mind is more the physical identity of how you relate to beings and substances and other people, that sort of thing, okay? But your personality actually helps grow that part of the soul, which you use to get to be a Urantia invested being, okay? So I think we're talking about two different things, because in the book, it always breaks down the difference between mind and personality, okay? Mind is more the functioning, electronic functioning of the identity of who you are physically, right? And the soul is more.
Yeah, that's what that paragraph just made in, when it said mind, it said identity.
Mm-hmm.
Identity.
And that's the physical body?
That's the physical body.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Yeah. That's the
Roger,
physical part of who
hold
you
on
are.
a second.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't mind transcend the physical body and it goes with the surviving person?
It does, but it does so as a reference, a record of all your experience.
The mind matrix. Remember that phrase?
Yeah, the mind matrix. It goes as part of your record, the guardian angel, right? And
Your identity.
yeah, that's part of your identity. When you wake up on the mansion world, it's really your personality and the identity put back together that makes you who you are as a Morantia being. Now, when you fuse with your adjuster, then the adjuster becomes a permanent part of you, and that personality becomes part of the adjuster and you at the same time, right?
Mhm.
Because that's who you are.
You know, what's interesting is that this fusion deal is that, let's say, for all practical purposes, fourth, fifth, sixth mansion world, there's a fusion that occurs. Let's say that happens. But then there are all of these lives all the way through, 570 of them totally. You know, it's tweaking, constantly tweaking and improving that relationship that we have with our personal adjuster. I mean, we adjust with them, but it's always improving as we move through the mansion levels,
Right.
Through the Morantia levels, all the way to
On every level, right?
Yeah. I always thought that was fascinating, and the fact that it's always it can always be better. And
yeah, it always gets better and better. You know, it's true, Mike. It does so in the spiritual sense too. When you become when you start as a first stage spirit,
there you go.
It grows then too, because you have to go through all the worlds of Uversa and Salvington, and with each one you get tweaked a little bit, even as a spirit. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Well, your physicalness, whatever that is, at Morantia, that's right. Okay.
So, Roger,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Personality, in order for personality to function, it has to have mind, right?
It does. And it has to have a physical body too, right? Of some sort. Yeah. Starts out as a finite physical body, but it has to have a Morantia investor when you get to the mansion worlds. It has to have a physical source to attach to, right? And when we get to the mansion world, it'll be a physical source also, but it'll be on a higher level, a different dimension. This is what Jesus was talking about in this talk on the 7 cosmic dimension, right? It's on a different level than we are now, right? A higher dimension. It's kind of funny how we say things like 7 dimensions. You think of all the time scientists have speculated about other dimensions in the universe. It's not that much different than that. You think that, comes right down to it. All right, Mike, would you take personal realities in the first paragraph?
Yeah, I'm on personal realities. Spirit is the basic personal reality in the universes, and personality is basic to all progressing experience with spiritual reality. Every phase of personality experience on every successive level of universe progression swarms with clues to the discovery of alluring personal realities. Man's true destiny consists in the creation of new and spirit goals, and then in responding to the cosmic allurements of each supernal goal of non-material value.
Wow, this is our goal. Right. This is what we're going to. With every level we have new stuff coming. I love this progression swarms with clues to the discovery of alluring personal reality. Wow, that's it's a journey of exploration if you think about it, right? Any way you look at it.
Greatest of all.
The greatest of all, journey of exploration. All right. A little bit here. Let's, would you take the next one, please?
He's muted.
Yeah, I think he's trying to find the thing to unmute. There you go. You got it.
That is the secret of beneficial association between personalities. You cannot really know a person as the result of a single contact. You cannot appreciatingly know music through mathematical deduction, even though music is a form of mathematical rhythm. The number assigned to a telephone subscriber does not in any manner identify the personality of that subscriber or signify anything concerning his character.
Okay. I love this first sentence. Love is the secret of beneficial association between personalities. There it is, right there. Right?
Is it all?
Love is what it's all about from the beginning, right? All right. And it goes on to tell us we can't know a person from a single contact. You can't get to know some from just one contact with them, can you? All right. You have to have repeated contacts with them. You have to get to know them. They have to get to know you, right? And it goes on to tell us that you can't appreciate music through mathematical division. It's the same principle of love, right? You can't learn to love music by one exposure to it, right? And you can't learn to love people with one exposure to them. All right. And then it goes on to tell us that it talks about a telephone subscriber and how it doesn't tell us anything about their character. So when we first meet people, we can't tell what people are like or anything about them from a first meeting, can we? That's the name of that game. All right. Let's, would you mute for me, please, sir?
Who? Me?
Yeah. Would you? Yeah. Mute again.
Okay. Mathematics, materials. Oh, the mute.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear something in your background there. Right. Who's on the other side of that?
Wow.
Tim.
That sounded like
Tim,
a war zone.
Yeah. Tim, would you take the next one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, mathematics, material science is indispensable to the intelligent discussion of the material aspects of the universe. But such knowledge is not necessarily a part of the higher realization of truth or of the personal appreciation of spiritual realities. Not only in the realms of life, but even in the world of physical energy. The sum of two or more things is very often something more than or something different from. The predictable addictive consequences of such additive. The predictable additive consequences of such unions. The entire science of mathematics, the whole domain of philosophy, the highest physics or chemistry could not predict or know the union of two gaseous hydrogen atoms with one gaseous oxygen atom would result in a new and qualitatively super additive substance, liquid water. The knowledge of this one physical, how do you pronounce that? Physicochemical
Yeah.
phenomenon should have prevented the development of materialistic philosophy and mechanistic cosmology. Wow, that's big.
That's big.
Yeah, that's a lot to that. But let's break it down to something real simple. Two things you add together do not always add to the quantitative reality of those two things added together. And it shows us that this in the next paragraph when it talks about water. Okay. When you take two separate types of atoms, hydrogen right? Okay, which is a gas, all right, and oxygen, which is a gas, okay? You add those two gases together, and by the way, hydrogen is very flammable. We know that, right? We know that oxygen is very flammable. That's why they have all these warnings on these oxygen tanks, right? Two flammable liquids, when you, two flammable gases, when you put them together, they turn into a liquid, which is the most, we have more of that liquid on this planet than we do anything else. Think about the oceans, right? Hydrogen and oxygen. Now, the interesting thing is when you put those two together, they extinguish fire, don't they? You know, it's really interesting. A guy down in Florida actually figured out how to take water and make it flammable again from the hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, and he patented it. And there was this big to-do about, oh, I guess it was about 10 years ago, he patented it because he figured out how he could run automobiles off of water because they're flammable. All right. He disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. They probably, the gas companies bought him out more than likely.
You got that right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the next paragraph. They're gonna talk about this a little bit.
Well, I just had a
Okay.
quick question, Roger.
Sure.
So basically what I just read, are they trying to just distinguish between the spirit and the material, like science and religion, or pretty much spiritual realities versus material ones?
Yes, they are, and that's what is the knowledge of this prevented development of a materialistic philosophy and a mechanistic cosmology. Okay, this is why I always come back to this point. You can't take away science from the Urantia book, and you can't take the Urantia book away from science. It's part of the same thing, right? We live in a cosmos that has physical structures and capabilities. We also live in a cosmos that have religious and philosophical capabilities, right? It's all part of the same thing. When you read this revelation, you come to know that you can't have just science by itself, and you can't just have religion by itself, because they're all part of the same thing. Okay. All right. So,
Like, you know, if I may, just what came to my mind when it said the sum of two or more things is very often something more or something
more.
from the
That's-
predictable additive consequences of such unions. I think of the Paradise Trinity.
That's true. That's
I
a
think
great example, Mike.
Pure
Great
spiritual
example.
aspect that
Yeah.
they are different than the three together. Some together.
That's right. They are. The sum of the whole is much different than each and every individual one of them, right? Yeah. Jane, would you take the next one? I can't see you on the screen here, but I know you're out there, right? Jane still with us?
Technical,
Yes, there
yes,
she is.
12,
Yeah, 12-4
Okay.
or 9-4. Yeah.
4. Technical analysis does not reveal what a person or a thing can do. For example, water is used effectively to extinguish fire. That water will put out fire is a fact of everyday experience, but no analysis of water could ever be made to disclose such a property. Analysis determines that water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. A further study of these elements discloses that oxygen is the real supporter of combustion and that hydrogen will itself freely burn.
That's what we just talked about, right? But when you put them together, they come together and create something that's totally different, right? Totally different. All right. Is Millie out there with us tonight or not? Is she out there? No. Did I have everybody read now or not? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Let's keep going here. We're near the end of this one. Ed, would you take the next one, please?
You're here. Your religion is becoming real because it is emerging from the slavery of fear and the bondage of superstition. Your philosophy struggles for emancipation from dogma and tradition. Your science is engaged in the age-long contest between truth and error, while it fights for deliverance from the bondage of abstraction, the slavery of mathematics, and the relative blindness of mechanistic materialism.
It's telling us that all these things are good, but they're good in relative to all other things affecting them, aren't they? Right? So when we hear from the scientists that the universe was created by a big bang, and we know that's not true, we can't just go out and say you're wrong, right? They have to learn these things through their own process. Okay, we've been enlightened through this book why this is not true. Now they have not been enlightened through this book that why this is not true, and even if they read it, they may not understand it, right? Most things in this book you can't get through one perusal of it, can you? It takes study. It takes a lot of study. So, we can't discount that because it's part of the whole, right? It's part of the experiential process of the universe, all the people we know learning this stuff over a period of time, right? That's just all there is to it. We can't get on our high horse about it, right? We just can't. That's all there is to it. All right, Diane, would you like to take our last paragraph there?
Yes, thank you. Mortal man has a spirit nucleus. The mind is a personal energy system existing. Oh my gosh. Can you hear me, honey?
Yeah, uh-huh. Keep going. Existing around a divine spirit nucleus. Did you lose your way there?
I've got something and it's on my screen. I can't get it off. Oh, here we go. I'm going to start over.
Okay.
Mortal mind has a spirit nucleus. The mind is a personal energy system existing around a divine spirit nucleus and functioning in a material environment. Such a living relationship of personal mind and spirit constitutes the universe potential of eternal personality. Real trouble, lasting disappointment, serious defeat, or inescapable death can come only after self-concepts presume fully to displace the governing power of the central spirit nucleus, thereby disrupting the cosmic scheme of personality identity. Presented by a perfecter of wisdom, acting by authority of the ancients of days.
This is a very important paragraph at the end of this.
Yeah,
I'm going to spend a minute on it here. First, we have a spirit nucleus. What's it talking about? It's talking about the spiritual is the most important. Is that coming from yours too? Oh, okay. It sounds like your earphone disconnect. It's coming through the speaker. Anyway, mortal man is a spirit nucleus. In other words, the spiritual is the nucleus which everything else interacts with. Okay. All right. And then it goes on to tell us that the mind is the personal energy system around which the spirit nucleus functions in a material environment. So it's actually the mind that connects the spirit to the material.
That's right.
Okay. And then it goes on to tell us this long sentence about disappointment, defeat, death, and all these other things that can only affect us and displace the governing power of that spirit nucleus. In other words, all these external things can affect us and affect that spirit nucleus and disrupt the cosmic scheme of personality identity. Now, what happens when that happens? We die. We go on to the mansion world, right? When that disruption of spirit center happens, either through material environment or mindal environment or whatever, then that soul is released to go on to the mansion worlds and start a new life in the mansion worlds, right? The way it works. What a perfect system, right? We forget we have a spirit nucleus so many times.
You know, and I think to me, that last sentence is saying that, look, you got trouble, you got disappointment, you got defeat, you got inescapable death, but don't let this disrupt that cosmic scheme that we've got set up for all of you.
Really?
To me, it's like
that cosmic connection,
you know,
right?
put it aside, you know, it's part of living. So let's just go on with it, but don't let it disrupt you or distract you from what your real purpose is in that ascension journey and that cosmic scheme.
That's perfectly said. Perfectly said. That's true. All right, so that brings us to an end to paper 12. And next time we'll start on the sacred spheres of paradise. I actually got through this tonight, didn't we? Finally. Any questions on this before we get off this paper?
I want to say thank you for wrapping it up that way, because that was beautifully wrapped up with good meaning for everyday life.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for coming every time. This section ended up being what, 6 videos, I think. All right. Let's have a little prayer and we'll close for tonight. At least shut down the recording. Father, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for these wonderful people that come. We each share with each other and we learn from each other and we all benefit from these meetings. We thank you for minds to be able to absorb a little bit of this, and we thank you for our spirit that can take this on through eternity. Pray to watch over each and one of us and continue with us as we continue the study. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. And thank you at home for coming to join us. Let me
Thank you.